to bring somewhere in the range of $25,000 to $35,000.
That's a nice piece of change, Gary.
Something nice to find at a barn.
Yeah.
Your family basement might be hiding a fortune big enough to change your life forever. On Antiques Roadshow, some of the most jaw-dropping, multi-million-dollar appraisals in television history didn't come from safe deposit boxes. They were pulled straight out of dusty basement clutter. Welcome to our channel. Today, we're counting down the most insanely valuable basement finds ever uncovered, from forgotten fine art and ultra-rare first editions to dazzling jewelry buried under old junk. Are you ready to see what fortune is hiding beneath our feet? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode.
And that one is around $2,000, $3,000.
Wow. For a poster.
You have 47.
Oh my gosh.
Not every object on Roadshow shocks people with a value in the thousands. Some pieces grab attention because of one simple question: how has this even survived? These two chocolate figures are exactly that kind of find. One is Tommy Atkins, the other is an ambulance nurse, both connected to the First World War. Chocolate is meant to be eaten. It melts, breaks down, spoils, or simply disappears. But somehow, after more than a century, these figures have kept their shape.
Chocolate Tommy Atkins, number 6971, and I've got ambulance nurse. And they've survived intact.
That's right, yes.
And where did you get them from?
Then I got late godmother, she died in September, and I've been clearing her house out.
Right.
And I've been told they're about 1920s.
Well, they're made by Pascal's, London.
They were found while clearing out the house of the owner's late godmother. At first, they sound like small objects hidden among family memories. But the expert immediately understands that these are not just old sweets. They belong to a time when even chocolate could carry a patriotic message, bought in support of soldiers and those serving during the war.
And I have seen one or two of these before, but never in complete condition. Now, I mean, this is very unusual survival, really. If you were patriotic in the First World War, you would have bought these chocolates in support of the troops.
What makes them both charming and slightly creepy is that contrast. These are not porcelain figures, they are not metal keepsakes, they are chocolate, something created to vanish. Yet, these two tiny figures have survived almost like they were frozen in time. And of course, there is one thing the expert has to make clear: they are definitely not something anyone should eat.
What would somebody pay in a sale for them? Probably somebody would pay for the two £50 to £100, something like that.
Right. Okay.
But good fun, though.
Yes, that's right.
Around £50 to £100 for the pair. The number is not huge, but this case is still unforgettable, because sometimes the value is not only in the money, it is in the strange survival of a small object that should never have lasted this long. First World War, chocolate still shaped like human figures, funny, unsettling, and a tiny piece of everyday history that somehow refused to disappear. Of all the pieces featured today, this may be the one that makes people stop the longest just to figure out what they're actually looking at. A child's chair, carved into the shape of a bear that's both charming and just a little strange. At first glance, many people would probably assume it's nothing more than an unusual decorative object. But behind it is a story that stretches back more than half a century.
I found it at an auction, and I found out it was sitting in an attic for 50 years.
The owner was drawn to it the moment he saw it. Not because he knew where it came from, not because he expected it to be valuable. He simply couldn't ignore something that looked so unusual. So he decided to place a bid and take it home. Sometimes, curiosity alone is enough to begin an extraordinary story.
I dished out $800 for it.
That purchase soon led to a completely unexpected discovery. As the experts examined the chair more closely, they realized it belonged to one of Europe's most celebrated carving traditions, a style in which skilled craftsmen transformed animals and scenes from nature into furniture that was both practical and artistic. It was far more than an ordinary child's chair.
This is certainly what we would call a Black Forest bear child's chair.
What impressed the experts wasn't just the playful design, it was how remarkably well the chair had survived. Its carefully carved details remained beautifully preserved, revealing the extraordinary craftsmanship that had gone into creating it more than a century ago.
I love the details here. I mean, you start with a glass eye, the fur, the way it's beautifully carved. I love the little bear claw holding on to the top of the arm support.
Yet perhaps the most heartwarming part of this story had nothing to do with craftsmanship at all. The chair was still serving the very purpose it had been created for generations ago. It had never become an untouchable museum piece. Instead, it continued to be part of everyday family life.
Before my nieces were born, and they enjoy sitting in it and reading books.
And I just love the fact that she said, oh, your nieces sit on here, love it, and read the stories. I mean, this is what it was made for.
Then came the appraisal everyone had been waiting for.
I would expect it to bring between $1,000 and $3,000.
Nice.
It's a good score, right?
Yeah, good investment.
From an $800 auction purchase to a chair valued between $1,000 and $3,000. It may not be the biggest profit in today's countdown, but it is certainly one of the stories most likely to leave you smiling. Because sometimes the most meaningful antiques aren't the ones locked behind glass. They're the ones that continue bringing joy to the very people they were originally made for. Some forgotten objects spend decades in an attic. Others sit untouched in a garage or a basement. But the next item was left inside a toolbox because everyone in the family believed it was nothing more than an old mechanical tool. That simple misunderstanding almost led to a mistake no one saw coming.
This used to be my great-grandfather's, and my grandfather inherited it. He didn't know what it was, so he thought it was a tool.
For years, it sat among wrenches, screwdrivers, and other ordinary tools. No one ever imagined it was a firearm. That only changed after the family began sorting through their grandfather's belongings following his passing.
We were going through his things, and my other grandfather pulled it out, and he wasn't sure what it was and started to suppress it, and my father said, "Don't do that."
A single warning came just in time, because the tiny object in his hand was in fact a gun. Not an ordinary pistol. It was a palm pistol, one of the most unusual firearm designs of the late 19th century.
It's a pretty cool little gun, and it's really a novelty, made by the Chicago Arms Company.
At first glance, it's hard to believe this was ever designed for personal protection. It doesn't resemble a conventional handgun. There is no traditional grip, no familiar trigger. Everything about it was engineered to fit neatly into the palm of the user's hand, and its firing mechanism was even more unconventional.
So it operated with a rotary system inside, and we have 7 chambers.
Instead of pulling a trigger with one finger, the shooter simply squeezed the entire grip. It was a remarkably bold idea for the late 1800s. That unusual design is exactly what makes palm pistols so desirable to collectors today, especially since relatively few examples have survived the passage of time.
Condition is everything with guns. This has got most of the original finish. A gun like this would retail at a gun show easily $2,000.
Wow.
Around $2,000 for an object the family had long mistaken for an ordinary tool. That's exactly why stories like this continue to fascinate Antiques Roadshow viewers. Because sometimes the most valuable treasure in the house is the one nobody ever thought was worth a second look. If you found an old, scratched-up chess table tucked away in an attic, you probably wouldn't imagine it had witnessed some of the most remarkable moments in chess history. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a forgotten piece of family furniture. But the deeper the experts explored its story, the more they realized this table had survived experiences that very few historic objects still can.
This table I found in my mother and stepfather's attic after they both died.
After his mother and stepfather passed away, the owner unexpectedly discovered the table in their attic. Had the story ended there, it would have been just another old piece of furniture brought to Antiques Roadshow. But then he revealed an event that completely changed the table's journey.
Hurricane Katrina hit and their little cottage was washed away.
Hurricane Katrina swept away the family's original home. Yet somehow, the table survived. And remarkably, that wasn't the only disaster it endured. After being moved to a new house, it survived another devastating flood. The water stains, worn edges, and weathered wood were no longer simply signs of age. They had become scars left behind by history itself. But even that wasn't what truly astonished the experts.
The following chess masters have played on this table.
Mounted on the tabletop were brass plaques listing legendary chess masters who had once played there. Among them was Jose Raul Capablanca, one of the greatest world chess champions in history. That was the moment everyone realized this table hadn't simply survived the passage of time. It had been present for games that became part of chess history.
And it goes on to list an amazing who's who of the great chess players of the late 19th and early 20th century.
Few people realize that New Orleans was once one of America's most important chess centers during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This table is one of the few surviving witnesses to that remarkable era. Its true value doesn't come from the wood or its craftsmanship. It comes from the stories, the players, and the historic moments it quietly witnessed for well over a century.
I would think at auction, we might think of $3,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
As a good estimate.
$3,000 to $5,000. Not the highest appraisal in today's countdown. But this story reminds us that not every treasure is measured by money. Some objects become priceless because they preserve a piece of history that once lost can never be replaced. And that's exactly what makes this old chess table so extraordinary. After furniture associated with Hollywood icons and legendary designers, the final piece in today's lineup sits at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. At first glance, it hardly looks like an antique worth talking about. The table is rough, weathered, and covered with old stains and dried paint marks. For years, it wasn't displayed inside the house. It wasn't treated like a family treasure. Instead, it sat quietly in a barn, serving one simple purpose, holding old paint cans and whatever else needed a place to rest.
At first glance, it certainly is homely.
Even the owner admits the table isn't particularly attractive. The only reason he kept it was because it had once belonged to relatives who lived in Louisiana's Cajun country. After his father brought it home, it spent years tucked away in the barn, collecting dust while no one gave much thought to what it might actually be.
My dad brought it home and kept it at his house a little while, but then he put it in his barn. It's been there ever since.
The tabletop still carries circular marks left by paint cans. Layers of dirt and wear have built up over decades of everyday use. To most people, those marks simply make it look old and worn out. But the experts were looking at something entirely different. What they saw wasn't damage. It was a remarkably well-preserved survivor with a history that had somehow escaped being erased.
It is an extraordinary piece, a very rare piece of Louisiana furniture.
This turned out to be one of the rare surviving examples of 19th century Louisiana furniture. Its original Louisiana cypress construction, strong French craftsmanship, and surviving brass hardware made it exceptionally uncommon. Pieces like this rarely appear on today's market, making it a remarkable discovery despite its humble appearance.
Well, I'm so glad you took it out of the barn because it is a great rarity.
Then came the moment when the old paint stand was finally judged as the collectible it truly was.
And if I were to see this table up at auction, I would probably estimate it in the $3,000 to $5,000 range.
Oh. Wow, a paint holder.
No,
Wow.
it's
no
not.
No more paint.
From a forgotten work table sitting in a barn to a rare piece of Louisiana furniture valued between $3,000 and $5,000. Sometimes the most ordinary-looking objects turn out to be the ones hiding the greatest stories. And as this family discovered, the treasure wasn't sitting in the living room all along. It was quietly waiting in the barn, where no one ever expected to find it. An auction of abandoned storage units rarely sounds like the place to uncover anything extraordinary. Yet thanks to one completely spontaneous decision by his mother, two ordinary-looking comic books became one of the most memorable discoveries on Antiques Roadshow. The remarkable part is that no one had any idea what was actually inside the box when they bought it.
And she said there were 2 boxes of comics, and did I want to have her bid on them? And I said, sure. And so she brought them home, and in the box were these 2 comics.
The entire box of comics cost just $24, then sat forgotten in the attic for years before finally being examined. Stories like this are surprisingly common in the comic collecting world. Many books that were once sold as inexpensive entertainment for children have become highly desirable collectibles decades later. And as soon as the appraiser looked through the box, 2 issues immediately stood out.
We have the Avengers #1 from September of 1963 and Avengers #2 from November of 1963. So the reason I chose these two comics is because right now the Avengers are very big in the public consciousness.
These are the first 2 issues of the Avengers, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the legendary team behind Marvel's golden era. Most importantly, the Avengers has hallmarks the beginning of the series, making it one of the books collectors most want to own. But another factor would have a major impact on its value: condition.
These are what we'd call very good. This one would be a very good minus. This one would be around a very good plus.
Right.
Kind of in that range.
Right.
Older comics are often damaged by folds, spine wear, or moisture, so copies that survive in attractive condition are significantly more valuable. Although these 2 books are not perfect, they still preserve what matters most: their place in Marvel history. Then came the moment neither the owner nor his mother ever expected.
At auction, in what we would consider unprofessionally graded condition, this would sell for around $450 to $550.
Really? Wow. That's really cool.
But Avengers #1, we estimate in this condition, it would probably sell at auction for between $4,000 and $6,000.
No way, you are kidding me.
From a forgotten box of old comics, one thoughtful purchase unexpectedly brought home a genuine piece of Marvel history. Its significance comes not only from its age, but from being the first chapter of one of the most successful superhero franchises ever created. Some toys seem to arrive at the wrong time. When they first appear, children find them strange, maybe even a little frightening, but decades later that same strangeness can turn them into collector favorites. Blythe dolls are exactly that kind of case. They had oversized heads, tiny bodies, huge eyes, and a look that felt almost too unusual for the toy market of the early 1970s. At the time, they may have been difficult to love, but that odd design would eventually become the very reason people wanted them.
Well, we really do have a taste of the 70s here. What drew you to these dolls?
One of the ladies was American, and she brought my sister and myself one each of these dolls from America, and they are from a company called Kenner Blythe. They were produced in 1972, and I believe that they only ran for 1 year.
What makes this story work is that the owner does not try to turn her childhood memory into something sweet and sentimental. She admits the dolls were hard to look at for too long because those big eyes gave them an almost alien quality, but that is also what made Blythe dolls stand apart from ordinary toys.
Anne was quite happy for her to be in the back of my mother's china cabinet and really not to look at them too much because of their slightly maybe alien look, the big eyes. They do have one special feature which makes them even more terrifying. If you pull this string,
the eyes change color.
The eyes change color.
A doll whose eyes change color. Back then, it could make a child curious and uncomfortable at the same time. But time has a strange way of changing the role of an object. What once felt too weird slowly became a perfect symbol of 1970s retro style, especially when the dolls still came with original clothes, the box, accessories, and those tiny period boots.
I've had this ambivalent relationship with them. I did hate them when I was little and then have grown over the years. The retro feel to these, I think this just captures that groovy 70s appeal.
Absolutely. I think these are so 70s.
And this is where the real value starts to show. These were not just old dolls. They were in great condition, with the box set, clothes, accessories, and most importantly, rarity. From a toy once hidden away because its eyes felt too strange, the Blythe dolls could now be worth around £5,000.
They are absolutely in great condition. You've got the boxed set, and they're actually rare. I would say maybe 5,000 with your case, the other dolls, and these fantastic clothes.
A toy once considered unsettling became desirable for the exact same reason. That is, the roadshow twist. Sometimes the thing people want to hide in a cabinet is exactly what collectors spend years trying to find. Not every rare book is celebrated simply because it is a first edition or bears the author's signature. With this copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, the most extraordinary detail is the person to whom it was inscribed. A single name written on the opening page immediately told the appraisers that this was far rarer than an ordinary first edition.
My grandmother was an editor for Lippincotts in New York City, and she is the editor of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Let's open this up.
To my beloved Tay, with all the love in my heart, Nell.
And then we have To Kill a Mockingbird. It's the first edition.
Tay was Tay Hohoff, an editor at J.B. Lippincott, who worked closely with Harper Lee as the manuscript was developed. Many literary scholars believe her editorial guidance played a major role in shaping To Kill a Mockingbird into one of America's greatest novels. For that reason, this is much more than a signed copy. It is an association copy, an edition personally inscribed to someone who directly influenced the book's publication and literary history.
Well, we always knew Harper Lee as Nell, and that's why it's signed that way, and that's the way we always used to address her. My mother threw some of the best cocktail parties in Tuscaloosa, just down the road a piece. When the book came out, she invited her mother, my grandmother, and Nell to come down for a party to celebrate the book.
Those memories reveal that Harper Lee was not simply a famous author, but a close family friend known to them as Nell. The book also retains its original first edition dust jacket, a feature highly prized by collectors because so few surviving copies remain in excellent condition. The combination of a first edition, the original jacket, clear provenance, and an inscription to Tay Hohoff makes this copy exceptionally rare.
Well, first of all, when you get into To Kill a Mockingbird, it's one of the most important books of the 20th century.
It certainly
I mean,
is.
it gets into the civil rights, the law, the way it was in the South. Not only was the book great, but then the movie was a spectacular movie.
Beyond winning the Pulitzer Prize, To Kill a Mockingbird became an enduring landmark of American literature. Its reputation was further strengthened by the acclaimed film adaptation starring Gregory Peck, helping first editions remain among the most sought-after books in the rare book market.
When I was first thinking about the price on this, I was saying it's easily retail $12,000 to $15,000. A first edition, if you had it in this condition, without the inscription and signature, would probably be $6,000 to $8,000.
Okay.
That inscription and signature, I mean, it's just fabulous. It's one of the best you could get.
The appraiser explained that a comparable first edition without this remarkable inscription would likely be worth only $6,000 to $8,000. The personal inscription to Tay Hohoff nearly doubled the book's retail value to $12,000 to $15,000. Sometimes, a few handwritten lines preserve not only a friendship, but the publishing history of a literary masterpiece itself. Not every hidden treasure is kept in a safe or displayed in a gallery. This print sat quietly in the family's home for years, with almost no one paying attention to it. Only while clearing out the house did the owner see it for the very first time and remember an aunt's simple advice that it was something worth taking good care of. That single reminder was what eventually brought the print to Antiques Roadshow.
This print I found in my parents' home after they moved out. I had never seen it before in my life. I was very surprised. My aunt gave me this one here and she told me, you take good care of it because I know it is valuable, because it's a Grant Wood.
With no ownership records or remarkable family history to rely on, the appraiser had to begin with the print itself. He quickly identified it as a lithograph by Grant Wood, one of the leading figures of the American regionalist movement. That meant the artwork's importance came not only from its image, but also from the artist's place in American art history.
The print closest to me is a lithograph by Grant Wood. Both of these prints were published by an outfit in New York known as Associated American Artists. Each of the prints published were issued in an edition of 250.
An edition limited to 250 impressions immediately made the print more attractive to collectors. Although the appraiser admitted this was not one of Grant Wood's most famous images, he pointed out an important advantage. The horses in the composition make it especially appealing to collectors of regionalist art and American rural subjects.
It's a notable artist, but not one of his better images. Now, the Grant Wood is a little more exciting because he's one of the top American artists of the first half of the 20th century.
Grant Wood's reputation, the limited edition, and a subject collectors enjoy all combine to give this print its value. The remarkable part is that the owner never imagined they possessed a significant work of art. To them, it was simply something discovered while cleaning out the house. To the appraiser, however, it was a print with a well-established place in today's collector's market.
It would likely bring between $6,000 and $9,000 at auction.
Really?
And I would actually put a replacement value on this of somewhere around $18,000 to $20,000. So.
Oh my golly.
Instead, it all began with an old closet and a brief reminder from an aunt, allowing a long-forgotten print to be recognized as the work of one of the most important American artists of the 20th century.
It's been in my family for over 40 years. I don't know anything about the piece itself, and my mother was wearing this in the portrait. And ever since then, it's been disappeared into the safe deposit box, and I inherited it.
For more than 40 years, this small object remained a mystery within the family. It once appeared in a portrait of the owner's mother as a piece of jewelry worn around the neck, but afterwards it was placed inside a safe deposit box with very little known about its true origin. At first, the family only had guesses about where it was made, but the expert quickly noticed the first unusual detail. This object was never meant to be used in the way they had imagined.
In the portrait, where was she wearing it?
Around her neck.
She was wearing it around her neck.
Yes.
How interesting. Because that's not where it should be.
Really?
It is a scent bottle.
Instead of a regular pendant, it was actually a scent bottle, a miniature container for fragrance that was once used as a fashion accessory. During the 19th century, personal items like this were not only practical objects, but also reflected the status and taste of the owner. And with a closer inspection, the expert discovered the craftsmanship hidden inside this tiny piece.
This was probably made around 1880, and it is French. Actually, it's not. The colorful part here is enamel on metal, made with 18 karat or higher yellow gold.
The scent bottle was identified as a French piece, dating from around 1880 foot. The colorful decoration was not porcelain, but enamel on metal, a technique that creates a bright, durable surface with a sense of depth. Combined with high-quality gold and carefully finished metalwork, the piece revealed the detail and refinement of luxury accessories from that period.
The chain is gold, the mounts are gold, so the metalwork is really exquisitely chased, finished. It has a different color gold around the outside.
The value of this object came not only from its precious materials, but also from its design and craftsmanship. A small perfume bottle like this represented a time when even everyday items could be transformed into portable works of art.
Never had it appraised.
At auction today, that would probably bring around $7,000 to $9,000.
Wow, that's great.
From a family piece once mistaken for ordinary jewelry, this scent bottle turned out to be a French gold and enamel creation over a century old. A small keepsake ultimately revealed a story of fashion, craftsmanship, and the elegance of a past era. If the previous pendant watch stood out because of its family story, then this next piece is impressive for a completely different reason. It brings together some of the biggest names in the luxury world: Tiffany & Co., PATEK Philippe, Natural Pearls, Guilloche Enamel, Platinum, all combined into a single piece.
What I brought in is a pendant watch that was my husband's grandmother's.
For many years, the owner actually wore the chain separately as a necklace, while the watch itself spent most of its time tucked away in a box. But as soon as the appraisal began, the expert kept uncovering details that made the piece more and more remarkable.
It talks about the pearls being oriental.
And I don't know what that means.
Okay, that's an old term. What it means, though, is that they're natural pearls.
Natural pearls. That alone is a major plus. Most pearls found on the market today are cultured pearls, while natural pearls have become increasingly rare over time. As a result, collectors are always excited when they encounter them. But that was only the beginning.
Inside you have guilloche enamel, and this is all done on platinum.
With every new detail, the watch became more impressive. Natural pearls, guilloche enamel, platinum construction, the Tiffany name. And then the expert opened the back of the watch, and the story immediately moved to another level.
On top of that, when we open up the back of the watch, it gets even better. The watch was made for Tiffany by PATEK Philippe and Company.
this was the moment that made the appraisal truly special. Tiffany is already a prestigious name. Patek Philippe is already one of the most respected watchmakers in the world. But Tiffany and Patek Philippe together create an entirely different level of collector appeal.
You know, a bunch of years back, this may have been 3,000 to 5,000, maybe 4,000 to 6,000.
What's particularly interesting is that years ago, this piece would likely have carried a much lower valuation. But the market has changed, collectors have changed, and demand for exceptional pieces like this has continued to grow.
This is easy, $8,000 to $10,000.
Really?
And that's an auction price.
But by the time of this appraisal, the numbers looked very different. $8,000 to $10,000 for a piece that spent years sitting quietly in a box. And perhaps the most remarkable thing of all is that more than a century after it was made, it can still be worn exactly as it was originally intended. Not every valuable discovery begins with the intention of building a collection. Sometimes a casual trip to a flea market in search of something interesting leads to a completely unexpected find. That was exactly how the story of this print began. It would be many years before its owner realized that what he had brought home was far more than just another picture for the wall.
Back in the 70s, I used to frequent a lot of flea markets. This one I picked up about mid or late 70s. I asked the young lady how much she wanted. She said, well, 25. I said, well, I'll give you 15.
The appraiser immediately identified the piece as a lithograph by Robert Riggs, an illustrator best known for his work in major American magazines. Although much of his career focused on commercial illustration and advertising, Riggs earned lasting recognition for lithographs that captured dramatic stories with remarkable impact. Among them, Dust Storm remains one of his best-known works.
So the artist is Robert Riggs. He's best known for these lithographs he made in the 30s and 40s. And the title of this work is Dust Storm.
The image captures the harsh reality of the Dust Bowl, portraying people struggling against the overwhelming force of nature. Its most surprising feature, however, is that this powerful scene was originally created for an advertising campaign. Even so, the artwork's emotional impact far outlived its commercial purpose and helped establish it as one of the defining images of Riggs's career.
It's a classic Dust Bowl scene, and it's reminiscent of so many other images from this time period. It very much has that mood. It's this heroic fight against this natural force.
The appraiser explained that very few impressions of this lithograph have survived, making well-preserved examples increasingly difficult to find. This particular print had remained in excellent condition for decades, adding significantly to its appeal among collectors. That rarity ultimately became the foundation of its final valuation.
He produced between 50 and 100, most likely. Not a lot have survived. This is not something that you can just go out to a gallery or anywhere and buy. I would put a replacement value on yours at $15,000.
The appraiser assigned the print a replacement value of $15,000, reflecting what it could cost to locate another comparable example. That figure is supported not only by Robert Riggs's reputation, but also by the small number of surviving impressions and Dust Storm's importance within his body of work. What began as a flea market purchase costing only a few dollars ultimately became a discovery that even its owner never expected. If any case proves that a treasure can begin with almost nothing, it is this one. Not $200, not even $20, but just $2.50. A small weekly sacrifice, the kind most people would forget, quietly became the beginning of a family treasure that no one saw coming.
When I was in high school, I would every week save my lunch money, and on Fridays, I'd buy a new Tennessee Pearl for about $2.50. No, it was $2.50.
But the story gets even stranger. Her grandfather once lived near a creek bed where people could still find pearls in the water. They were so familiar that children did not even treat them like gems. They flipped them across the creek as if they were marbles.
And they used to go over there and find them and flip and see who could flip them the furthest across to get them across the creek bed.
The pearls, not the shells.
The pearls. They treated them just like they were marbles.
What once sat under a counter and was once thrown like marbles had become much rarer. But to the owner, they were never just pearls. One was a high school graduation gift from her parents. Another had been removed and sewn into the top of her daughter's wedding dress.
That one is my high school graduation from my parents. Mother and Daddy gave me that. When my daughter Maxie got married, we took it off and sewed it at the top of her wedding dress in the V.
Then the appraiser began turning those memories into numbers. The pearls she once bought for $2.50 could now bring $300 to $400 each. The necklace alone added up to $11,200. One rosé pearl could be worth $2,000 and another around $1,500. Placed together, this was no longer just a childhood box of pearls, it was a collection.
These pearls today could go for $300 and $400 each. You add up the whole necklace and there's $1,200. But when you look at the collection, there's $6,500 here, you know, at auction for something like this.
I have a daughter and a granddaughter. They're going to stay right there.
Right.
Her answer said everything. $16,500 was a serious number, but to her, this pearl collection had carried too many memories to be treated only as merchandise. Lunch money, a cigar box, a creek bed, and even her daughter's wedding dress. Sometimes, Roadshow is not only valuing an object, it is valuing a lifetime lived with it and passed through a family.
I brought in this pin. It was in my father's safe deposit box, and we had to open it when he passed. We actually someone had to drill it open, and we found a bunch of jewelry that I had never seen before. And this is one of the things it found.
After years hidden away, this brooch finally made its way out of the safe and onto the appraisal table. At first glance, the expert could already see signs of a high-quality Art Deco piece. But the most exciting detail was not only the design or the diamonds surrounding it.
Your wife is correct. It is a sapphire. That color suggests that it's a sapphire from the Kashmir origin.
That possibility immediately changed the story. In the world of fine gemstones, origin can make an enormous difference. Certain locations are highly prized by collectors because of their rarity, history, and the unique qualities associated with the stones they produced.
We can't know for sure without a laboratory report, so they can tell you with some certainty where they're from. When you see the light hit that stone and you see that prized velvet blue, you kind of know it's probably going to be from Kashmir.
This is why professional testing is so important for exceptional gemstones. An expert's experience can reveal important clues, but only a detailed report can confirm the full story. Sometimes that single confirmation can completely transform how a piece is viewed on the market.
If we get that lab report, and it is a Kashmir sapphire, and it is about a carat, I would have no problem estimating this for auction in the $15,000 to $20,000 range.
Oh my goodness. I guess we're going to have to reopen the estate. I'm going to have to divide this 3 ways.
The final estimate proved this was already an impressive discovery. But what made the appraisal even more exciting was the possibility that there was still another level of value waiting to be confirmed. One small detail about a gemstone's origin could turn a beautiful brooch into something far more extraordinary. And that is what makes antique jewelry so fascinating. Sometimes the biggest secret is the one that cannot be seen at first glance. After several 6-figure treasures, this case tells a different kind of story. No revolution. No famous celebrity. Just a small collection that once belonged to the owner's aunt, who married a wealthy Egyptian businessman in the 1940s. For many years, these pieces sat quietly in a safety deposit box.
Now, I'm assuming, therefore, that these would have been worn by someone who was in your family?
They were my aunts, and she married a wealthy Egyptian in the 40s, and these were part of her treasure trove, I guess, from that period. These have been kept in a safety deposit box for many years, and just interested to find out a little bit of the history.
The collection consists of only 3 pieces: a powder compact, a cocktail watch, and a double-clip brooch. It doesn't sound like much, but each item carries a prestigious name behind it. The first piece appears elegant, decorated with small gold details and rubies. Then the appraiser opened it and spotted the name inside: Boucheron, Paris.
There we are. If I rub away at the edge, I can see a word there. Yeah.
Right.
And that word is Boucheron, Paris.
Wow.
Now, Boucheron is one of the great makers.
The watch proved to be equally impressive. It was a diamond-set cocktail watch, a style that became enormously popular during the years between the world wars. And under closer inspection, the appraiser found the signature of one of the most respected watchmakers in the world.
This watch, when you look at it with a lens, it's signed Vacheron and Constantin, one of the great makers.
The final piece was an Art Deco double-clip brooch. This was exactly the kind of jewelry fashionable women loved to wear at the time. Looking at all three pieces together, the appraiser could almost picture their original owner.
So she'd go to this ball or function wearing her Vacheron diamond watch, her Boucheron powder compact, and her diamond double clips. She was some girl.
Then came the valuations.
This box is probably worth £1,000 to £1,500.
Wow.
Very good. Something like that. The watch. Because it's by such a fine manufacturer, £3,000 to £4,000.
Wow.
I can tell you, having looked at them with my lens, they are beautiful. £8,000 to £10,000. Wow.
Wow.
So combined value, £12,000 to £15,000. Fantastic.
Amazing.
The collection carried a combined value of £12,000 to £15,000. Not the most expensive group of jewelry in the video, but it felt like a miniature time machine. With just 3 accessories, an entire era of elegant parties, cocktail watches, and Art Deco glamour seemed to come back to life. For years, no one imagined that the box stored beneath a bed contained anything remarkable. Inside were nothing more than old concert posters, faded with time, that had once covered the bedroom wall of a teenage rock music fan. After his brother passed away, the entire collection was almost forgotten. But when those posters appeared on Antiques Roadshow, no one expected that what seemed like simple souvenirs from a teenager's youth would reveal a remarkable chapter in the history of American rock music.
I brought my brother's concert posters that he started collecting in the early 60s. As an early teenager, he used to send money for postage to Bill Graham and the Fillmore West, and they'd send him a poster in the mail to Oklahoma City.
The collection contained 47 posters issued during the late 1960s, when psychedelic rock was exploding across San Francisco. What immediately caught the appraiser's attention was that these posters had been distributed at the time of the original concerts, not printed years later.
The first up is one of the most iconic 1960s rock and roll posters, the Jimi Hendrix Flying Eyeball from 1968, with art by Rick Griffin, and it is just the peak of 60s psychedelic art. This is among one of the most desirable collectible rock posters.
The standout piece promoted a Jimi Hendrix concert with Rick Griffin's legendary flying eyeball design, one of the defining images of psychedelic art. A small detail in the placement of the lettering and poster number allowed the appraiser to identify it as a first printing, the version collectors value the most. For posters like this, a first edition can make an enormous difference in value.
In this condition, with no pinholes, but a little bit of damage to it, but not much, very minor, we'd put an auction estimate of $5,000 to $7,000.
No way. No way.
The Jimi Hendrix poster alone was valued at $5,000 to $7,000, but it represented only a small part of the collection. Alongside it were other rare posters featuring Grateful Dead and several legendary artists from the same era, adding even more value to the group. Then came the final appraisal.
We've got 47 posters, and for grand total of, at auction, between $20,000 and $35,000.
What had once been nothing more than concert posters hanging on a teenager's bedroom wall had become a collection that any fan of rock music history would be proud to own. A painting covered in dust, torn in several places and forgotten in a barn for decades is rarely the kind of discovery that makes anyone think of a famous artist. This one seemed even less convincing because it looked nothing like the paintings most people associate with John William Waterhouse. That unexpected difference meant the appraisal began not with certainty, but with a great deal of doubt.
Where's it been then, this much-loved picture?
I think it was in an old barn or a farm building for about 30 years. And then my father, he bought it about 20 years ago. I think it was a house sale for a few pounds.
The painting's poor condition wasn't the appraiser's biggest concern. What made him pause was how unlike any familiar Waterhouse it appeared. Rather than dismissing it immediately, he carefully examined every clue to determine whether it could belong to a very early stage of the artist's career. If that were true, its unusual appearance might actually be one of the strongest pieces of evidence.
Right, but this is so untypical, this picture, that first of all we say, well, it's not really a Waterhouse. But it is signed JWW down here. And if I think about Waterhouse when he started painting, he was sort of experimenting.
In the appraiser's opinion, the work most likely reflected a period when Waterhouse was still developing his own artistic voice. Many painters spend their early years experimenting with subjects, composition, and technique before establishing the style that later makes them famous. For that reason, an untypical painting is not necessarily a sign that it isn't genuine. Instead, it can offer a rare glimpse into the beginning of an artist's career. Even so, identifying the artist was only part of the story.
It's in rotten condition, but this can be put right, although I think that will be difficult to clean. But the dirt is quite ingrained into that impasto.
The heavy layer of dirt, the impasto surface, and the tear in the canvas meant that restoration would not be easy. Even so, the appraiser believed the damage could still be professionally conserved. That meant the painting's essential value had survived beneath years of neglect. And that ultimately led to a valuation that completely surprised the owner.
But I didn't see why, you know, finished and all done up, somebody might ask £20,000 for it or something.
So it's worth for me to take it and have it restored?
I think so, yes.
From a neglected canvas bought for only a few pounds at a house sale, it had become a work believed to be by John William Waterhouse. Sometimes the most fascinating discoveries aren't the masterpieces everyone recognizes at first glance, but the unusual works that force experts to think long and carefully before reaching their conclusion. 3 old sheets of paper forgotten in a storage shed had almost reached the end of their journey as nothing more than discarded documents. They were buried among old theater materials, unframed, unprotected, and with no obvious reason for anyone to keep them. Yet one visitor decided to take them home. That simple decision uncovered a story reaching back to the earliest days of American comic art.
As I understand it, Winsor McCay was perhaps the most important comic strip artist of his time being the first few decades of the 20th century.
Quite early, right, absolutely. So we've got a hand-done illustration here, which is really wonderful.
What immediately excited the appraiser was that these were not ordinary newspaper pages, but original pen and ink drawings created by Winsor McCay himself. Original comic art is far more desirable than printed copies because it preserves the artist's actual hand and the creative process behind every page. Even more remarkably, all 3 illustrations came from Little Nemo in Slumberland, McCay's most celebrated comic strip.
And it's from Little Nemo in Slumberland, which is probably thought to be his most famous strip.
Right. Well, other than the comic strip, I know that he was an important pioneer in the development of animated films.
Beyond transforming the history of comic strips, Winsor McCay also helped lay the foundation for modern animation with Gertie the Dinosaur. That legacy has made his original artwork highly sought after by collectors. These drawings still carried McCay's signature, the original New York Herald publication label, and even a dedication to entertainer Billy B. Van. Together with the location where they were discovered, those details created an exceptionally convincing provenance.
And one day I was poking around a storage shed in the barn, and I found these pieces, not framed, they were unprotected, loose leaf, in a pile of other materials that included Billy B. Van's old vaudeville arrangements.
So he had left them there?
He had left them there to rot. I went to the owner of the theater. I said, I found something I would like to purchase from you. I think it might be fairly valuable.
The owner walked away with all 3 drawings without paying a single dollar. That was almost impossible to believe, because a little moisture, accidental damage, or a routine cleanup could easily have destroyed them forever. In recent years, original comic art has become increasingly collectible, with each page serving as both a unique artwork and a surviving piece of publishing history. All that remained was the final appraisal.
And I would estimate your 3 to bring somewhere in the range of $25,000 to $35,000.
That's a nice piece of change, Gary.
Sometimes, the greatest treasures are not waiting in museums or galleries. They're quietly hidden among forgotten stacks of old paper, waiting for someone to recognize what everyone else overlooked. The French bronze clock.
Why is it so dirty? Do you not look after it?
No, it lives in a box in the attic because it's so ugly.
Really?
Yeah.
Who banished it up there?
My wife.
To this family, the clock was simply an old, dusty object that nobody found particularly attractive. But to the expert, all that dirt was hiding something far more interesting.
Underneath all this filth and mess, we have the most wonderful bronze bull.
The more closely he examined it, the more signs of quality began to emerge. From the finely cast bronze work to the craftsmanship of the movement itself, everything suggested this was far from an ordinary clock. Then came an important discovery.
You're lucky. Look, the original pendulum.
Still there.
Still there.
The original pendulum had survived intact for centuries. For collectors, details like that can make a tremendous difference. When the owner suggested the clock might be worth a few £1,000s, the expert immediately raised expectations.
Even in this state, I think your initial offer would be in the region of 20,000. 20,000 pounds in the rough like this. You're not going to replace this retail anything under 30 to 35,000.
What had spent years hidden away in an attic box was suddenly revealed as a clock worth tens of thousands of pounds. And the story did not end there. After a professional restoration, the transformation was remarkable.
The moment of truth.
Wow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you've done a great job. That's fantastic.
Wow.
Oh, it's beautiful. It really is. No, it's not quite so ugly.
A clock once dismissed as ugly. A French masterpiece nearly 3 centuries old. And one of the most satisfying transformations ever seen on Antique Roadshow. A book missing nearly half of its pages would normally have very little collectible value, but that rule hardly applies when the surviving portion belongs to Shakespeare's first folio, one of the most important books ever published in the English language. This copy had remained in the same family since the owner's great-grandfather acquired it. Yet because it lacked the title page, was missing hundreds of pages, and had been rebound, no one knew how much value could possibly remain.
I brought in a partial Shakespeare First Folio that I've had for about 15 years, and it's been in my family since my great-grandfather acquired it earlier in the 20th century, I believe. He collected a lot of interesting things from all over the world, so this is just one of his interesting things that he brought home with him.
The first folio was published in 1623, 7 years after Shakespeare's death. It brought together around 36 of his plays for the first time, and several famous works might have disappeared entirely if they had not been preserved in this edition. That history means even an incomplete copy carries a significance that ordinary antiquarian books rarely possess.
If you talked about an iconic book in the English language, the first folio of Shakespeare is one of them. Probably next to the Bible, Shakespeare is the most commonly printed book in the English language. Usually when you have a book and you say, it's only 176 pages out of, I think it was 400 something.
Only 176 pages remained, and the original binding was gone. However, whoever rebound the volume had not trimmed the page edges, preserving the printed text and margins. More importantly, 2 plays were still complete. For a first folio, that detail changed the entire appraisal. Complete copies can sell for millions of dollars, and most are now held by major libraries, museums, or institutions. As a result, collectors still pursue complete plays, fragments, and even individual leaves printed in 1623.
2 of the plays are complete. Those plays in and of themselves are valuable. You could take this book apart, sell the 2 individual plays that are complete. People will buy individual pages.
Instead of treating the volume as a badly damaged book, the appraiser considered each surviving section as a collectible object in its own right. Every page remained an original piece of Shakespeare's printed legacy, so its value could never be measured simply by counting what was missing.
Basically, this book, as it is, missing half the book, rebound, fragments, and so on, is probably retail a $40,000 to $50,000 book, which has gone up a lot since 1990.
Yes, it has.
Despite losing nearly half its contents and its original binding, the book was still valued at $40,000 to $50,000. It proved that with a work of this importance, value does not depend only on how many pages survive, but on the history those pages have continued to preserve for more than 4 centuries. Folk art root sculpture. Continuing the countdown is a piece that was not made from bronze, precious stone, or any expensive material. At first glance, it simply looks like a twisted tree root with unusual shapes. There is no signature and no famous artist attached to it. But the moment the owner saw it, she knew this was not an ordinary object.
I think I started to dance around, and my niece describes it as the happy dance because it was something so peculiar that I knew it was special.
A piece of folk art has to have a lot of things going for it to be great. It has to draw you in.
Yes.
And that's exactly what this does.
Before it was discovered, the piece had been sitting in a garage in South Jersey for years. No one knew exactly who created it or what its original purpose was. But in the world of folk art, the most important thing is not always a famous name. It is the imagination and ability to turn ordinary materials into something completely unique. From the natural roots, the maker found the shapes of snakes, birds, cats, and other creatures hidden inside. And the longer people looked, the more details they discovered.
It has a great old finish on it, and it's kind of like those spooky trees in the old tales. It fascinates me, it drives me crazy, and it kind of scares me too.
That strange mix of fascination and mystery is what makes this piece special. It was not designed to look perfect or traditionally beautiful. Instead, the artist kept the natural twists and forms of the roots, transforming them into their own world. Experts believe the piece was likely created around 1890 or 1900. Despite some signs of age, its condition and incredible detail made it an impressive example of folk art.
There's a little bit of wear up here, but I tell you something, to a non-folk art person, this is probably ugly as a mud fence. But to the people that collect folk art, it's a thing of great beauty. So much detail.
This is exactly the kind of artwork that can divide opinions. Some people may only see a strange piece of wood. But for folk art collectors, that originality and personality are what create its value. No two roots grow the same way, making this sculpture almost impossible to recreate. That rarity led to a surprising valuation.
And as far as value is concerned, we really agonized over that part of it.
Okay.
I would say a good auction estimate would be $30,000 to $50,000.
That's incredible.
From a tree root forgotten in a garage to an estimate of $30,000 to $50,000, its value did not come from the original material. It came from the imagination of an unknown artist who saw something extraordinary where others may have seen nothing. A strange sculpture, but that uniqueness is exactly what made it unforgettable.
This is my husband's grandfather's watch. It was a watch that we actually found while cleaning out a home after his aunt passed away about 2 years ago. My husband's grandfather served in World War I. After the war, he stayed in Europe and toured a little while, and we think that's when he purchased it, possibly in France.
But what the family did not know was that this small watch came from one of the most important turning points in watchmaking history. At the beginning of the 20th century, a wristwatch was not yet the everyday object we know today. For generations, pocket watches had been the standard choice for men. They were considered reliable, traditional, and the proper way to carry time. Wristwatches, on the other hand, were still seen by many as smaller accessories rather than serious timekeeping instruments. But then history changed everything. World War I transformed the way people thought about watches. On the battlefield, reaching into a pocket to check the time was no longer practical. Soldiers needed something faster, something they could read instantly while keeping their hands free. And that simple need helped push the wristwatch into a completely new era. This PATEK Philippe was created during that fascinating period of transition. But what caught the experts' attention was not just its age, it was what had survived. Because in the world of vintage watches, value is not always about looking brand new. Sometimes the most important question is how much of the original watch is still there. And this example had something collectors always hope to find. Originality. The dial itself tells part of that story. It represents an early generation of luminous watch dials, a major innovation at the time because it allowed the owner to read the time more easily in low-light conditions. But the real surprise was how much of the watch's original character remained intact. Over the decades, many watches from this period were restored, repainted, polished, or had parts replaced to make them look newer. For an everyday owner, that might sound like an improvement. But for collectors, every replaced detail can remove a piece of the watch's original history. This Patek Philippe avoided that fate. The dial, the finishing, and the small details from the period all help preserve the story of when the watch was first made. It was no longer just an old gold wristwatch. It was a piece from the moment Patek Philippe and the entire watch industry were entering a new chapter, when wristwatches began replacing pocket watches and shaping the future of modern watchmaking.
A watch in this condition, which is really rare, probably in today's market would be about a $40,000 to $50,000 watch retail.
Okay.
And very collectible and very desirable.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yep. I think there may be a fight to the finish on who's going to wear it next.
It was a gift from my father. My father grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. It was given to him from a neighbor. His neighbor was a civil engineer, and his neighbor also ran a radio repair shop in his basement, and my dad helped him repair radios. And he actually told me that this man inspired him to go on to MIT, and so it's really special.
But what the family did not know was that hidden inside this meaningful gift was one of the most complicated mechanisms ever created in the history of mechanical watchmaking. At first glance, it might appear to be a beautiful antique gold pocket watch. But once experts looked closer, they realized it came from Smith & Son London, a respected English watchmaker known for producing highly accurate timepieces during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. However, the true value of this watch was not only found in the name engraved on it. The real secret was inside the movement. One of the first details revealing the quality of the watch was its power reserve indicator, a feature that allowed the owner to see how much energy remained before the watch needed to be wound again. At the time this piece was made, that kind of function represented an impressive level of engineering. But that was only the beginning. The detail that placed this watch into an entirely different category was the tourbillon. In a traditional mechanical watch, gravity can affect the tiny moving parts inside the mechanism and create small variations in accuracy over time. The tourbillon was designed to solve that problem by placing key components of the regulating system inside a rotating cage. The idea may sound simple, but creating it was incredibly difficult. Every wheel, pivot, and tiny component had to be manufactured with extreme precision for the entire mechanism to work correctly. Even today, the tourbillon remains one of the most respected symbols of high-end watchmaking. And that's what makes this pocket watch so different. Collectors are not only looking at the gold case or the fact that it has survived for more than a century. They are looking at the mechanical achievement hidden inside. A small object that fits in the palm of a hand, yet contains hundreds of carefully engineered parts working together for one purpose, measuring time with extraordinary precision. More than just a family keepsake, this watch represents an era when the greatest watchmakers were pushing mechanical craftsmanship to its absolute limit.
This watch, in the present market, would retail between $40,000 to $50,000.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
No.
Wow. I had no idea. I better be careful with it.
This tourbillon escapement is still rare today, and it's made for very collectible watches. Let's take an example of like a Patek Philippe wristwatch. A strap, Patek Philippe, 18 karat gold, retail price, let's say, is around $20,000. That same watch with a tourbillon escapement would retail by Patek Philippe between $200,000 and $250,000.
Oh, wow.
So it's something really wonderful to have and very special.
That's amazing. Well, I knew it was a special watch, but I didn't know how special.
Agatha Christie is, of course, famous for her stories of murders and mysteries. And you discovered an Agatha Christie mystery all of your own.
I did. I did.
Agatha Christie is famous for mystery stories, where small clues slowly reveal an unexpected truth. But this time, a mystery connected to her name appeared in real life. It all began when a fan joined an auction at Greenway, the holiday home that once belonged to Agatha Christie. What she bought was not an expensive piece of jewelry, but simply an old trunk connected to the author she admired. But nobody knew that this ordinary-looking object was hiding a major surprise inside.
So I put a bid on this very tatty-looking trunk, and I hadn't seen it, obviously, because put a telephone bid in, and then had a phone call from them to say, yes, you've got it. So
after the trunk was brought home, the story began to feel just like a detective novel. A secret remained locked away inside, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. And when the box was finally opened, this simple souvenir turned into a real treasure.
what I didn't realise is that when I got the trunk home, there was a strong box in it that was locked. So it sat in my house for probably 12 months without me opening it, because I thought fate will take a hand one day. And in the end, fate was actually a builder with a crowbar who opened it.
What was found was not valuable only because of the diamonds inside. In the collecting world, a connection to a famous figure can transform a beautiful object into something with a much more powerful story. And the combination of real jewelry, its link to Agatha Christie, and the surprising discovery made this a truly unforgettable find.
And couldn't really believe that what was in there. There was a diamond ring.
Oh, this diamond ring?
A diamond ring.
In the end, the diamond brooch reached £22,000, while the diamond ring sold for £17,500. From an old trunk bought because of a love for Agatha Christie, the owner discovered a real mystery, almost like a story from one of her own novels.